spinning circle, and you're live.
Hey guys, how you doing? Tristan Clunas here from Lepage Signature. I'm so happy that you are able to join us today on this webinar. What we're going to be talking about is how to invest in pre-construction condos. And I have a great guest. He is
I'm okay. I don't know if I'm that great. But.
He's great. He is none other than Jeff, and he is the Lepage Signature Vice President and / owner as well. Him and his brother run a great brokerage. Awesome.
Kind.
I actually been. You want to know what's funny? I've been with you guys for 8 years now.
8 years, not to the day. I hope. I'm gonna feel really bad.
No, not to the date.
Okay,
no.
This is like
8 years.
Yeah,
but this is actually my anniversary. I'm 10 years in the business now, so it's awesome.
Congratulations!
So I've been with you guys for predominant.
For majority to be a part of your success.
Yeah. It's been amazing. But
well
so what we're going to talk about today, we're going to be talking about how to invest in pre-construction condos. I've been getting a lot of questions, Jeff. Tons of questions from a lot of different people, and it seems to be the same question. So I kind of want to go.
Sure.
It's just the way it works, right?
That's
so
right.
I'm like, you know what? Let's just do a webinar. This is the first webinar of its kind for me in a while. I used to do a lot of seminars years ago, and it slowed down, but now I've decided to
back in it.
Up. Let's go, man. Let's get right into it.
I love it.
So let's get into it. I first want you. Obviously, I just introduced you, Jeff.
Sure.
Thanks. Want to just talk about yourself a little bit, if you can?
Yeah, no problem. So we are a family-run business now for over 50 years, if you can imagine. So 50. My dad started it years ago, and then my brother and I got into the business. My brother being the elder of the two of us, much older,
much older, right?
And so he got in ahead of me, and I've been with the company now almost 20 years. So it's been a great run. And now one of my many hats I wear here is managing our new construction relationships. And the relationships, when you talk about pre-con, we talk about new developments, mainly new condominium developments across the entire GTA, and then some into other towns outside of the GTA, where now you're seeing more developments, more density. So this is where you're seeing these condominiums come up, and we're here to help your clients and many others take the dive. And it's a great investment vehicle and a great way to dip your toe in the water when it comes to investing in real estate.
And it's funny because you guys have done such a great job at putting yourself out there with these builders. I find that like Lepage, we're up there when it comes to like VIP, platinum access. We are like one of the top brokers out there.
We sell a lot of units, and I give kudos to yourself and a lot of our team members here. It's we sell a lot of units, and that of course helps nurture the relationship
100%
with a lot of the developers and sales teams behind these projects.
And of course, you guys invest as well, for sure.
We do, of course.
A ton of investment.
We're big fans.
I'm always coming into you. I'm like, hey, buddy, what should we do? What should we get into?
Yeah. Sauce, right? We're big fans of investing in real estate, and of course, we end up buying in a lot of the projects that we promote. So,
awesome.
It's exciting.
Perfect. So let's get right into it. The very first question, I know it sounds very basic.
I'm nervous.
There's a lot of people what is pre-construction? They just want to know what is pre-construction. There's obviously different names. People call pre-construction new construction condos or new builds, pre-con.
Sure.
All of it, right? What exactly is
Great question. So it's kind of like one big paintbrush. So it does, when you say new construction, I touched a little bit on it there. So of course, condominium sites, you're seeing a lot of the, parking lots in downtown Toronto converted into these massive towers.
Right.
And you're seeing other communities now where a lot of retail owners are converting their plazas now, their parking lots there, into towers surrounding retail environments. There is what we call low-rise developments, which are probably anything under 4 to 5 stories, even 6, you'd call it. So they have stacked townhomes, single townhomes, semi-detached, and all the way to detached homes.
Right.
Anything new. And so a lot of outside of the Greenbelt in areas like even as far as Barrie, you see these cities now growing into these farmers' fields, which were obviously once farmers' fields, are now becoming these massive subdivisions. You've seen that in Burlington, Oakville, and all direct, from Yonge Street. The Yonge Street was kind of the center of our of the GTA, the center of our universe. And as the further afar, obviously, you're seeing these communities grow with these massive, subdivisions, which I will say we don't tend to be as involved with,
Right.
because the developer doesn't need the assistance of a realtor. The demand is just so strong for these low-rise communities that, and good for them, quite frankly. We're on more where you have more greater, denser projects. When I say dense, I mean a lot of units to sell in one particular condominium project. That's where we can really step in and assist those developers.
And just to kind of like add to that, like you're buying these properties from pretty much paperwork, essentially, right? Like they're not built yet, right? So some of them aren't going to be built, 2, 3, 4 years out. I think some of them are even delayed 5 years.
They can.
So you're really buying the property, and it's kind of scary. You're buying it from the floor plans. You're just looking at the floor plan. You're looking at the site. You can go drive by. Some of these projects, or most of them, will have a sales center, but you're really just buying it, and they'll have like a display, like a model.
You're buying from plans. And pretty pictures.
Right. It's a lot of pretty pictures.
A lot of pretty pictures. But they do, I will say the developers do a fabulous job of giving the client a feel of what the end product's really going to feel like.
Right, I agree.
Right, so they do, they do have the model there, which gets, I'm excited. When I walk into a project and you see the sales center, you see the model, you can touch and feel what's going on, you can really get behind it and say, yeah, I see this.
Right.
And to have that, to be a developer, you've got to have this vision and to see, what and the whole culture of the building, what it's going to be like when it's done. It's fabulous. So that's why all the marketing materials you're seeing today are top of the line.
Yeah,
because you got to feel it.
Yeah, it's true. It's very, very true, and you can't touch it like resale. Right.
You got it.
So that kind of brings me to the next question. There's two things here.
Yes.
I want to know kind of like, and we discuss it all the time. In our office, we talk about what the market's looking like, because you're buying these properties 2-3 years out.
Yes.
What's the market going to look like? Obviously, there's no crystal ball. We don't have a crystal ball. So unfortunately, we do not have a crystal ball. I do not have it here. Yeah. We don't have a crystal ball. I left it at home. So we're not quite sure what's going to be, what's going to happen 2, 3, 4 years from now. Sure. But we obviously look at what's going on right now and what happened in the past to kind of, predict somewhat what's going to happen.
When you consider new construction, right, if you're looking at as an investment vehicle or an end user product, you are buying future value now. Right. So if you were to try to compare apples to apples, you have a building that's, say, complete, and you have a new site that's going up right next door to it.
Right.
Right. So the resale value of the current finished building, the values will actually be less than if you were to buy new.
Right.
So you are buying a future value. So when you purchase, you buy and you hope that the value will be more than what you paid for it. Right. When the project is complete. In the run we've had in real estate now, say almost, probably, we've had a few dips along the way in 08 and kind of mid 2015, although 2018 rather, we saw a little bit of a dip.
Right.
But inevitably the real estate has increased in value especially at a quite a heated pace, you would call it, over the last 15 to 20 years. Usually the cycle used to run every 7 to 8 years, but now we've had a great run for, probably upwards of 17, 18. So when you invest and buy into these projects, the goal is to have a building that's either worth equal to or more, a unit, real estate that's worth equal to what today's values or more when it's finished.
It's funny. I was reading something and it says, like, if you look at 100 years, right? So the past 100, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Past 100 years, if for every single decade, on average, real estate values have doubled.
Yes.
Which is insane.
Insane.
So, I mean, like, if you're trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future, in the next 2-3 years, especially if you're planning on buying these properties, which we both, I think you guys are really, you try to.
We're fans of real estate.
Buy and hold real estate is always the best way to go about it, because then that over time you're going to have some dips, but real estate tends to go up and down in an upwards motion, right? Yes. So that's one thing. So
as long as you hold on, it's a great question, right? Or a great point, where if you are to invest in real estate, the most secure way in any investment, as long as you have a long-term outlook, and you're not looking to because there are investors that look to jump in and get out, either midway through the construction cycle or just before it's complete. and you make that little lift and you pull your cash off. You pull whatever cash you've made.
Right.
You pull your cash you've invested and maybe a little profit off the table. But the real profit, I would say, is earned over the long term.
Right.
If it is an investment vehicle, you're going to buy real estate, you're going to put a tenant in there even if it doesn't appreciate, you have a tenant paying down the debt, down the mortgage, down the debt you've taken on that project or down in that investment for you. And so over the life of that investment, and then usually mortgage, they say, the 25-year amortization period. So it's arguably paid for within 25 years. It's usually paid faster than that,
right?
Through our personal experience.
Right.
And so as long as you have that vision to say, I'm going to own this forever, that is where you really get ahead.
Right. Right.
That is where, if you have kind of that short-term mindset, that's where the risk definitely increases, because you inject that risk of, could the market decline?
Sure
it could.
Yeah,
right, in that shorter period. But
pandemics happen.
Right. So if the market does decline,
right,
even if you have that long-term outlook, it's not going to matter.
Right. So if you had to compare, so I know we kind of touched on it, but if you had to, somebody's looking at pre-construction compared to resale condos.
Yes.
So you look at a pre-construction condo, you're buying it from the plans, not going to be built for 2-3 years, or buying a resale. And resale is pretty much what you see, up for sale right now. If you go to any condo building, you'll see, condo up for sale.
Yes.
Why would one purchase one or the other over the other?
That's a great question, and I think there's another great question. So there's a few different avenues you can go down there with. If you were to buy resale, if again, strictly for investment, not talking end user here, for an investment purpose, the benefits of, I'd say, of buying resale today is that you can put and register a mortgage on it right away, and put a tenant in it right away.
Right.
However, as an investment vehicle, you do require to have that 20% down payment right now. Right. So if you're buying resale, you need to have the cash. Right. In your pocket. Where on a new construction project, you need to have some of the cash. Right. So the deposit structure is spread out over the life cycle. I call it the life cycle, or the whole development process, which is, you discussed, about a 4 to 5 year period. Right. So you're putting in somewhat installment payments over that process. Okay. So it spreads out. I hate to call it. It's not. I was about to say pain. It's not pain. It's a good investment, right? You're putting down cash. It just spreads out the money that you're putting down. So it's almost, call it a forced savings plan,
which is awesome.
Is awesome. The benefits of buying resale now is that you get a tenant in there now, paying the mortgage you have on it,
which is good.
Now you're not waiting 4 years for the project to be completed and then putting a tenant in.
Right. And I don't think that one is worth better than the other. I think it just depends on your situation.
100%.
Depends on how.
Exactly.
Like people that are looking to do, if you have the money, if you have, like, let's say $100,000, but you don't have, full 20%, you could stretch it out over, as you said, a longer period of time. It takes some time to pay it down. It's not going to feel like a big chunk, you know what I mean? Like that big hit right up front.
Right, you got it.
20% is, on a lot of these projects can be like anywhere from $150,000 that you need to come up with right out the gate.
Right off the gate. Yeah. But in this case, a lot of times now developers are becoming more innovative with their deposit structures. They still require that 15 to 20% down upon what they call occupancy when you get actually your unit. Now they're finding ways to stretch that deposit, to figure out ways to maybe put smaller payments over that period of time, instead of coming up with maybe 5% every 6 months,
hefty,
which can be a little
cut
more.
Cut it in half, like 2.5.
Exactly. We're seeing that more and more now.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's kind of just go through, like, I guess you want to, if I had to figure it out, like, or have a word for it, I guess you're doing your due diligence, for example. So let's say, what are the things that one should be looking for? Decide that you want to get into new construction, you want to buy a project, you want to get involved. I had this money ready to rock. What's the first step? Like, how should they go about doing this, their due diligence, in terms of picking the right project?
That's a great question. And I think the first step, of course, is location.
Yes, 100%.
And now with real estate being such in high demand, these projects these new developments are getting thousands of applicants.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, thousands of applicants. It's multiple offers, right? It's for new construction.
Crazy,
right? Which So you have to be open to different opportunities
Right.
and different locations.
Right.
So as long as you can say, you know, I want to find 3 top locations, say around the GTA, and I would say generally speaking, most investors will look to invest in the area they know best, which is usually around where they live.
Sure.
Right. So that's a great place to start.
Okay.
But it's always good to have other options
Right.
in the back of your
Right.
mind to say, you know, if you live there's been some great developments in Pickering lately.
Right.
So if you live in Pickering, you're going to say, you know what, I want to invest in Pickering. You know what? I understand it.
Sure.
I want to look for a project here. But again, with so many, there are a lot of other people that are just as interested in Pickering. It's nice to maybe, I'm going to look at one project maybe in Pickering, maybe another project a little more central in Toronto, and maybe one in Etobicoke.
Yeah.
Or some like really spread out, or Vaughan, or other
Right.
areas, to say, I want to educate myself on these different spots.
And just to add to that, one of the things I would tell my clients as well, when they're looking to invest, if you, let's say, for example, you're not familiar with the area, we tend to look for properties, or I kind of steer them to properties that are within 500 meters of a major transit hub. So like being close to, i.e., you know, subway station or GO Transit. I think that the rentability is a lot easier. It's way easier to
100%.
rent out, and also to get top dollar. It usually appreciates quite well.
It does.
When you're within 500 meters of a major transit.
100%. I think transportation is number one, I would say. And another hot button is education.
Yes.
So you close to university, close to colleges, things like that.
Yep.
A lot of investors like to know they've got a guaranteed tenant.
Right.
And students tend to, you know, help with that guarantee.
The turnover is a little bit more on the student, but
can be a little more wear and tear.
Sure. Yeah. But I find that even though you can also increase the rents.
Exactly.
I mean, if somebody's coming out in and out of, I mean, you can
That's
always
correct.
increase your rents as opposed to dealing with rent control and all
exactly.
Right?
So the turnover
that,
happens. That's
yeah.
right.
So
I was just gonna say we have a bunch of questions.
Oh, do we have a lot of questions?
A ton of questions.
Oh gosh.
Ton of questions.
Okay, so that's
we don't want to. Sure, we can. We'll take a quick break.
Yeah.
Let's take some questions.
Sure.
Love it.
I mean, so we'll go in order of who dropped them. So first question is from Melody. I bought a pre-construction in Barrie, set to close in 2024. This is a mixed residence building that will have a hotel associated.
Oh, fabulous. Okay.
That's awesome.
Is this a good or a bad thing?
Great question.
Go ahead, man.
You want me to take that on?
Go ahead.
Right. Well, if you like room service, it's great. It's great. All kidding aside, I think it's a great question. Again, there's a lot of different avenues there. If there is a hotel component to it, a lot of times, if you are looking to rent it out, the hotel will manage the unit for you. And again, I don't know if this is the case in this particular
We're seeing a lot of that downtown.
100%. So, which is nice,
Yeah.
right? So it takes the management concerns off your plate.
Completely turnkey.
Completely turnkey.
Yeah.
They manage it for you. Obviously, there is a cost to that.
Yes.
So
the more than regular maintenance costs, I would say.
Exactly. The only thing, it adds more traffic, say, to the building. In a lot of cases, if there is a hotel component, there will be a separate entrance for the hotel versus the condominium section of the building. But I think with anything, when you add more people to the mix, it only improves the surrounding area. So if there is a hotel there's going to be retail is only going to get better.
Employment will be around
restaurants,
there.
exactly.
Sure.
Employment opportunities, restaurants, all that kind of stuff just brings the neighborhood up. So again, is it a positive? I say it is a positive. Anytime there's more increase in density, I look at it as a positive.
Yeah,
but I'm a fan of real estate. So
we were just talking about that 2 seconds ago, right before this live. So very interesting. I hope that answers your question.
Hope that helps.
Yeah.
You guys want to take a few more?
Sure, fire away.
Let's
why not? For sure.
So, this one was kind of answered in the questions, but do you need a pre-approval looking into pre-construction?
That's a great question.
Great, go ahead.
So a lot of these projects are asking for pre-approval. You have a couple. I remember we were talking about that. There's a couple builders that they're not necessarily stressing it, but for the most part, just plan. Especially if you're looking to do it, I would say, you know what, be conservative. Have a pre-approval ready to go, because majority of them are going to ask for a pre-approval.
Majority of them do. Very few do not ask.
Right. Exactly.
So we'll err on the side that yes, you will need a pre-approval. You after signing, you don't need to have it say right away if you're interested in a project. It's good to know that you're qualified. the developer usually requires it within the first 30 days from signing the contract.
Right. So, and just to kind of touch on what we're going to talk about it, but I guess we can get into it now. We're going to just mix it up, I guess, right now. But like, when you sign, so let's say you find a project that you're interested in, you're ready to rock, you sign the documents, you're good to go. You actually have 10 days. So there's a 10-day cooling period.
Don't call it cooling.
Oh gosh, 10-day period.
The due diligence period.
Due diligence. Fair enough.
You got to stay interested. You got to.
Fair enough. Yeah, because cooling says yes. It says
not to change your mind.
Yes, exactly. So 10-day due diligence period. Exactly. Thank you for correcting me. Exactly that. And during that time, obviously, you're going to be looking at your mortgage. You're going to be looking at getting a pre-approval. You're going to be getting your lawyer review the contract with your lawyer. Go throughout that whole process. And during those 10 days. I know we're saying it's a due diligence period, but if you want to get out of that project, you can change your mind during that time.
That's correct. And it is not 10 business days, it is 10 days straight.
10 calendar days, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Yep. Great questions.
Yeah.
One more?
We'll take one more. Let's take one more. Let's do it.
What protection as a buyer of pre-construction does one have if an unforeseen situation occurs, like another pandemic, for example? Or what protection does a buyer have if not all the units are sold? So I think maybe what they're trying to say is, what protection do they have from sort of outside elements like pandemics or things like that? Or what happens if like the building doesn't complete the sales?
Perfect. Yep. Yeah. No problem.
I can.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I mean, that's a very interesting question. If they don't complete the sales, and let's say, for example, I'm guessing if they back out of it.
Well, it's a good question.
Because that could be the situation.
If the project doesn't go forward,
your money's not lost.
Your money is safe. Then that brings up a very good point too. When investing and buying in new construction, you want to make sure that the funds, your initial deposits, all the deposit money throughout the construction process, and as is paid to a lawyer's trust account.
In a trust,
you want to make sure that it is a reputable lawyer. And I would say 99.9% of all the developers and all the projects that we are affiliated with are extremely reputable and use very reputable law firms that have a long-standing.
There's like a handful of them.
There is a handful exactly that you get used consistently. Look, they're the best, right? And developers want to align themselves with great organizations, great law firms that attract people to buy their product. They want you to know as the investor and buyer that your money is secure. Right. So they align themselves with the top law firms in the GTA, and your money is safe in their trust account.
Yeah, so your money's not gone. So like if for whatever reason they don't close or something happens and the builder runs out of money, they can't
you get your money back.
You get your money back, exactly. The only problem. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
This whole bunch of stuff.
Go ahead, man.
Here, right? So if you brought up another good point there, if it's under construction and the developer runs out of money, and this has happened,
it has for sure.
Right? So you will be asked. There's a few different avenues here. You'll be asked if you want to continue,
right,
or would you like your money back. In some cases, if you want to continue, which means that somebody else now has purchased the project from the developer that is unable to complete it. In some cases,
that's for more money.
They ask for more money. They ask for more money, and you have the right to say no.
Right,
and you will get your deposit back.
Right. The problem, the only concern that we have when it comes to that, I mean, and this is why we're kind of touching on all the different things that I wanted to go through today, anyways, which is go with a reputable builder. You want to ensure that you're going to go with a builder that's going to close, that's going to complete the project.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, if you've been waiting for like a year, 2 years, 3 years, and your money's been tied up, and yes, let's say the builder, for example, decides that they can't close for whatever reason, they can't
with the project.
Exactly. You want to be in a position. You don't want to be in a position where yes, you get your money back. That's great, but that money hasn't
worked for you.
No, you lost all the opportunities of all the other projects over the years, right? So I mean, that it's not the ideal situation. Yes, you get your money back. But we always recommend, and as Jeff said, we go with builders and we work with builders that are all reputable, that are going to.
There are unforeseen circumstances that
things happen for sure.
There are pandemics and things like that, and or a banking crisis, and things like that have, of course, we learn from our past.
Yep.
But we look to align ourselves with the right developer, and it's important to align yourself with the right realtor.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Right.
Nice plug.
Yeah, like
so we can go to more questions, but I just want to kind of touch on a couple of things.
Yes,
what are the incentives? So let's say you decide that you're looking at projects. we discussed, location. We
Yes.
discussed being close to, maybe a major transit hub or close to schools. What are the incentives that one should be looking for when it comes to, picking a project?
Great question. I think important ones are to touch on a lot. You get a lot of comments on free assignments and development,
Yes.
what's called development caps.
Yes.
So an assignment is where, again, it helps you alleviate some of that risk. So if you buy into or invest into a new construction project and your life changes, and all of a sudden, as we get closer and closer to the your closing date,
Right.
and your life changes, and say, I can't. My job changed. They're transferring
Things happen.
me
Yeah.
to the other side of the country, or
So
another
a family member gets sick,
or
and you have to pay whatever the case would be.
You got it exactly. You can assign that unit, and ideally, you don't want any charges pertaining to that. So a lot of cases, developers will promote a free assignment.
Right.
So assignment that you have a right to sell that contract prior to the completion, but prior to closing with the developer. Other promotions I mentioned were the development caps. So towns and cities charge what's called levies and all these other things that, like hydro levies, gas levies, park levies, school levies. So it's nice to know that that there is a cap to those fees. And a lot of times builders will put a certain amount capped on, depending on the size of the unit and how many bedrooms there are, they will cap them. What those cap figures are, I'm sure you're all wondering. It's different per project, and depending on where, if it's in Vaughan or downtown Toronto or Oshawa, wherever it might be, those development caps and amounts will levy. And know that although you are, as the purchaser, paying a portion of those development charges, the developer is also paying a large portion of those levies.
That is such an important point.
I don't want the client thinking it all falls on their
lap, but why? The reason why we want to touch on that, because a lot of people, or there's not a lot of people, but there's situations where people forget about that point, and they decide that, okay, you know what, I'm not going to look into the cap fees. I'm just going to go ahead and get into a project. But if for whatever reason the builder comes to you now, when you're ready to close, and say, hey, it's going to cost you, $25,000 in development charges, and you didn't have a cap, you're responsible for that. And I've heard of situations where people, they had to pay $20,000-$30,000, not with me,
a little surprise,
right? Exactly. So you want to ensure that one is you want to make sure that during
all
that
this is done during the 10-day due diligence period.
During your due diligence period, you're making sure that you have your cap levies, your cap development charges, so that, and as you said, it can vary. I mean, depending on the size of the unit and where you are. But let's say, for example, you have a cap of like $10,000 or $15,000. You know that if it ends up being $25,000, no, your cap is $15,000.
Your cap is
exactly. So that's extremely important. You mentioned assignment. There's another thing.
Promotion. So other promotional ideas would be sometimes, depending on where the project is located, you're seeing now parking included. So it's nice to know that what you see, like here's the price, and it includes parking and a locker.
Because parking, how much are we seeing?
Don't ask.
How much are we seeing parking costs now in Toronto?
It is now
on average
it's now cost into the six figures, so it's over 100,000.
Over 100,
depending on the project.
Grand, guys, for your vehicle. That little plot, that little
85,000. You've seen
crazy.
85,000. You've seen upwards of 150 to 160,000.
$160,000 for a parking spot.
Spot.
Just to let you know what's going on in our city.
Yes.
Hence why I'm telling people to get involved now, because
that is like AAA location.
Yeah. That's fair.
Like
St. Clair Young, one.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's fair. The other thing I would just to add another incentive. So you have assignment, we have cap levies. The other thing I would say is the right to lease.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. So, again, this is where it gets a little confusing.
Yes.
Where to try to kind of
That's
clear the air
that
on
one
this.
to you.
All right, perfect. So thanks. So they have you have two. There's many important throughout the development cycle of the project. You have your deposits that are paid over time. Then you have two important dates with the developer. One being the occupancy date, and one being the unit transfer date. Unit transfer date is really the closing date with the developer. That is the date you actually physically get your deed, you close, and you're actually able to register a mortgage on the property, right? So you have the occupancy date, which is usually anywhere from 2 to can be even longer, call it 6 months prior to the unit transfer date.
Right.
So you are, as the purchaser of this unit, responsible for a maintenance fees
Right.
and a percentage of, call it, it's a percentage of fees that the builder is required to pay to their lenders.
Right.
And it works out to what your mortgage payment would be.
Right. Right.
Funny enough, it's just the way the math works out. So the builders now are allowing you, and they didn't before, but they have structure now. You are allowed to rent your unit during that occupancy period.
Very
That's,
important.
call it 2 to 6 month period.
Yeah.
So you're able to recoup. You're getting rent, and you can pay those costs down as if it was a mortgage. Now, your only thing is you're not paying yourself, right? You're not paying any principal towards your mortgage payment. Those funds, 100% during this first few months, during that occupancy period, those payments, 100% of that amount goes directly to the developer.
But you're also not coming out of pocket.
No.
Ideally, you're not coming out of pocket during that time because you have your rent coming in.
It's not a revenue source for the developer, right?
No.
This is it, right? You're covering costs.
Right.
So it's not like the developer's taking more money and putting it in their pocket.
Right. Fair enough. I just wanted to, I know we're going to take a couple more questions, but you already touched on it, but I wanted to just get into it. So you obviously found the project, great location, you know the incentives. We talked about the 3. We said right to lease during occupancy, right to assignment. Ideally, that's $0, not costing you any money.
Yes.
And then we also mentioned cap levies, so cap development charges. So you find the right project, you're ready to go. What kind of deposit structure? I know we kind of touched on it, but like, what is a typical deposit structure?
No problem. So
that somebody would look at?
No, good question.
And deposit structure is money. Now we're talking about money.
How much cash?
How much money? Yes.
Great question. So in the first, call it 30 days, what's required? So you sign the contract. What is required is now you're seeing a certified check in the amount of $5,000 or $10,000.
Right.
Every project's different.
Right.
It's becoming more the norm that it is 10, that
10
it is
grand.
5.
Yeah, it kind of increased up to $10,000.
They moved it up now.
Yeah.
So right, and so it is in most cases now. You see 10,000. Now depending on where it is, but it is a 10,000 certified check, and then the balance to 5% in 30 days. So from 30 days from signing, the balance to 5% is owed to them. Not necessarily by a certified check. Usually within that 10-day due diligence period, you're required to drop off the post-dated checks. They give you the dates in which the future deposits are given.
Right.
In most cases, after that first 30 days, 100 and then 180 days from signing, a further deposit is due, and then another 180 from then, another deposit is due, and so on. It depends how stretched out the deposit structure.
Yeah, like I've seen typically around, I would say have around 10% ready to go in that first year.
10%, yeah, 10, yeah. You say it
depends on. I'm just going based on average, but it depends, right? Like every structure is going to be different. But from what I've been seeing, I would say like around 10%.
10% the first year is safe,
right? And it depends on when it's going to be completed. If it's stretched out 3 years or 4 years, in some cases, I've seen some completion dates right now, 2026.
Yeah, 6 years out,
literally, which is crazy. So I mean, they will stretch out the deposit structure as well, right? So you would only need about 10% for that first year, and then. But again, every deposit structure is different. Every builder does it differently. Do you have any other questions at all?
Should we? Okay.
One thing is they can't hear me, so if you guys can just repeat the question.
Sure. Oh, got you. So we can't hear him. Got it.
Right. There is somebody else.
Good to know.
Here.
There is. I'm not. Yeah, we're not manning it from here. From my. No,
we're not talking to the wall on the other side of us.
Go ahead, Nikki.
All right. Let me just go back to where this.
Perfect.
Perfect. So. It's a little bit of a complicated one. What if I buy a pre-construction unit now for $800,000 with a 3-year construction delay? Then in a year from now, the housing bubble bursts.
So what if I'm
on the hook for $800,000?
So what if I? So the question is, what if I buy a pre-construction condo unit for $800,000? It's not going to be complete until 3 years from now. But something happens. He's saying the bubble bursts. The bubble bursts. Pandemic things happen.
Well, who knows if we're in a bubble?
Who knows, right? So if that was the case where bubble bursts or something happens,
the market changes. There's a change in the market.
Am I still responsible for completing or for
that payment
unit? Yes.
Technically speaking, you have signed a contract.
You are responsible.
Now, if there is a major correction, right? I have seen in the past where you can go back and try to negotiate with the developer. A lot of cases, the developer will say they're in it, they're committed, right? It depends. Again, it depends on the quality of the developer, right? So if there is if the developer will say yay or nay, you can try to go back and negotiate, but that has to be some major changes.
Right.
If you've had major changes, personal major changes, of course,
Makes it a little harder.
makes it tougher, right? But
you're pretty much on the hook.
you're on the hook.
Yeah.
You're on the hook, right? So, but there have seen cases when there has been major corrections. Say, like we're going back years ago, like 89,
Right.
like 1989, and those major, people.
I was only like I was only.
I know. It's it, right? You're on the t-ball field, but right. But I had back in those days, and talking to developers over the years,
Right.
they've had to, they had to say they had to get creative, right? Because they want to stay. Their goal is to stay in business and
Right.
things like that as well. So
Yeah, they don't want to screw you, right?
No.
Like I mean, that's not the ideal situation
No,
for
it's
them.
not.
Right?
It's not. Look, but obviously, if there's a major shift in the market, everybody has to make adjustments.
Right.
But that is. And we've been on such a long run. We haven't been there in a long, long time.
What I've seen also, I've seen that they extended the deposit structure. So, for example, if we're in a situation, for example, obviously a pandemic, during that time, your completion date's still further out. I've seen them extend. They'll give some type of
or extend. They
incentives.
may extend the closing, right?
Or extend the closing.
Who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows?
To help you out.
We are not the developer.
No,
We
and
are
every
definitely
developer
not the
handles
developer.
it different. So
Exactly.
I hope that answers your question.
Hope that helps.
Long story short, you are responsible technically by law to come.
You've signed a contract.
You're on the hook. Yes. So
next question.
Next question. Come on, Nick. We ready, man. We ready.
So, how often can you buy a pre-construction opportunity without a pre-approved mortgage?
How often?
Yeah.
I think that
Well,
it just depends on
if the builder doesn't require it, you can
then
keep buying.
Sure.
But
how many out of 10? How many times do you see a builder not require
one.
one? So one. So
One out of 10
let's say
projects.
like 10%.
Maybe
on
less.
average, probably because I
Maybe
think I can
less.
only think of one really
One or
right
two
now
that would say
that would
we're
take
okay.
it.
But
Yes.
But I will say, even though they don't actually ask for it, it will be in the contract that they
Cover their bum.
It is in their contract that states they require it.
Right.
So in a lot of cases, what's happened when we are representing clients and they're buying these new construction projects,
Right.
the developers get their thumb on us saying, where are the MPAs? Where are the mortgage pre-approvals? Right. So they're on us. So even if they don't ask for us, if it's a developer who doesn't quite, put our thumb on us, they have the right to ask for it, and it is in their contract. And if they ask for it, you are required to get one.
So it's better to just be prepared in those situations and find out in advance. But for the most part, I would just plan to have your pre-approval ready to rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Another question.
That was a great one.
That was good.
How does the builder set the price per square foot?
Oh, go ahead.
Wow.
Jeez,
Great question.
We're putting Jeff to work today.
I love it. So that's a great question, and obviously simplify it. So they have their costs,
Yes.
right? The cost they pay for the land. They have to predict their development costs, right? With the cost to build material, that includes material costs. Yep. They have to go, their levies, their cost, they have costs for all their approvals, they've got overhead.
And to give a little wiggle room as well for changes, right? Just
all the changes along the way.
Who's expecting lumber to 4 or 5 times?
Oh, exactly, right? There has to be
there has
to be some cushion built in there as well. And look, they are a business. They are a for-profit business,
of course,
right? So there has to be something left at the end for them in their effort to put in a project. But know that let's say a developer buys a parking lot that has no approvals. It's a good 3 years. They have to own. They've paid millions of dollars for this parking lot, for the land. They have to then. It takes on average 3 years just to get it to day one of the sales cycle.
Wow.
Right. So all the approvals, and it costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get to that point of when they can sell it. So they have to have. They've got a lot of upfront costs.
Right.
And
without seeing a dime.
They don't see a dime until you close on that unit transfer date.
Right.
It is all basically, they'll have some cash in. Of course, it's like anything. They'll have some cash in, but a lot of it is borrowed funds.
Right. So keep that in mind, guys. As we said before, the deposits are not given. So when you pay your deposit, it's not like it's just going into the builder's bank account. They're not seeing the money. That money is, as we said before, held in a trust account with the lawyer. So the money that's coming in, they're not seeing that money until they close,
Exactly.
right?
And so builders acquire their financing once the deposits hit a certain amount,
Right.
and once a certain percentage of the building is sold.
Right.
And
Awesome.
it's usually 80%.
Right. Hope that helps.
Great. The next question is there negotiation room with pre-construction?
That's a great question. Is there negotiation room with pre-construction? So on price, I would say no. On average,
it's very rare.
You're not able to negotiate price. Usually, what the price that's set is what it is. It's not like resale where we're going back and forth. The price is what it is. But where we negotiate, we saw it a lot during the pandemic, where they were giving more incentives. So like an extended, deposit structure, or I know out in Durham, a lot of these builders for townhomes and detached homes were giving free. They were including finished basements.
Yeah,
and
finished basements,
right?
Certain extra kitchen finishes, things like that as well. So these extra little things that add up to great.
Sometimes they'll even take $10,000 off of the price.
Well,
I've seen that, but not negotiated.
They'll see, and usually that only happens if there are some what we call standing inventory, right? So if the project, say, doesn't sell out right, we're seeing a lot of projects sell out very quickly.
Right.
So if there's still, if a project doesn't sell as quickly,
right,
and there's still some units left over, there will be some incentives. Sometimes they don't necessarily give a rebate on the price. They may give what they call cash back on closing, some kind of rebate on closing, a credit on closing.
Awesome. I hope that answers your question.
But that again is fewer and far between these days.
Before we go into one more question, sorry, I just wanted to kind of just touch on one more thing. I want to make sure we talk about it, but HST.
Oh boy. Yeah.
HST is so obviously when you're buying, not obvious, but when you're buying resale, whether it's condos,
tax, right?
townhomes, we have to talk about tax, detached homes, that when you're buying those type of properties, you don't have to worry about HST, but when you buy new construction, HST is something that you do have to worry about.
You have to consider it. So when you see the sticker price of a new condominium,
right,
the price includes HST.
Right. So what happens if you're an investor?
Great question. So you can claim a portion of the HST back if you're an investor or an end user.
Right.
If you're an investor, you have to have a minimum 1-year lease contract agreement signed with a tenant.
Right.
You can only claim that portion as well after the unit transfer date.
Right.
When you actually have the physical deed.
And it's a pretty significant portion. Like you're getting majority of your money back for the most part.
It's a bit of the rebate is capped at $24,000.
Right.
So you can't claim back any more than $24,000, but it is more of a formula now.
Right.
And so our business partner, the government.
Yeah, he is our
they are. They're a smart bunch. They're a wily smart bunch. And so what they take into consideration now, if the project has appreciated in value since you purchased it, there is a formula. They do take that into consideration. Right. And so when you fill out the form for your rebate, it does take that in consideration. So it does knock a little bit of your rebate down if the price that does appreciate.
Awesome. So, and we try to get that form in as soon as possible. When you're working with us, we try to get that in as fast as possible so you can get
you get your money back.
Right? Yeah. So we don't waste time. We try to get somebody in, try to get at least right away. So
one other comment too with regard to that HST claim. If you are an end user, you have to live there for 1 year.
Correct.
You have to own it for a year.
I had a question about that just yesterday with the whole 1 year thing. That's pretty much what it is. You have to be if you're an end user, you have to be in the unit for 1 year in order for you to
there can be exceptions, but I believe you'd have to. I don't have a lot of experience. There are exceptions to that if there is a job transfer and things like that.
Right.
There are some exceptions that you have to provide some fairly heavy legal documentation to prove that you have, moved or some major life change that you're able to claim that.
Awesome.
To enable you to claim that HST back.
So a couple more questions. First, access. How important is that when it comes to buying?
It's very important when buying new construction.
Yeah. And just to kind of explain what I mean, like when we're saying first access.
It's a great question. With the demand that we have now for these new developments, builders now it's interesting the way they do it. They don't say it's a project of a condominium tower of 400 units. they're not going to flood the market with 400 units.
Right.
They're going to release 100, maybe 150, maybe 200 units,
Right.
maybe 50% of the building. And then they'll kind of see how it goes, even though, we as think, well, the developer knows how much the unit's worth. They really don't.
Right.
Right.
Kind
So
of want to test the waters.
they got to test the waters, right?
Yeah.
So inevitably they wanted the first release to go well.
Right.
So you're going to see the best pricing is when the project is initially launched. The best incentives are when the project is initially launched, because essentially what the builder developer wants to do, they're in this for profit.
Right.
Right. So after that first release, there inevitably will be a bump in prices, and maybe they may ratchet back some of those incentives.
Right. And so what we tend to do, we try to get in at that first access pricing.
Of course.
And the bottom price, that's usually, and that's where Jeff works extremely hard with these builders to ensure that we get first access. You're going to be getting the bottom price from the beginning. And that, at the end of the day, the builders, as they come out, as they roll out more phases, that they're going to be increasing the prices. So it's kind of almost like forced appreciation in a way.
They do.
By getting
They
in.
want to come that next round of units. If the demand is still there, they're going to increase the prices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just to touch on that, master plan communities.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of like firing away. I just want to get all these things
rapid
in.
fire.
And guys, just so we can, if you have more questions, you can see the link down below. It's soldbyclunas.com. Please type your information in, put your name, email, phone number, the whole nine, and ask your questions. We can get back to you. We're going to talk about even a project just in like about a few minutes. We're going to talk about a project that we think is actually a really good project that's coming up.
We only share the good ones.
Yes, only. So we get how many projects? We get tons of projects. So I really, when I start to put it out there, I'm only really putting out the ones that once it's like vetted. Like I've gone through it. It's meeting our criteria where I think it's going to be a good investment. So we're going to be talking about that one right now
for sure.
But master plan communities.
Yes.
Just kind of touch on what that is. So
great. I think great question. So master plan communities are becoming more and more of that kind of hot button in the real estate realm of things these days, where you're seeing these communities where they are going to essentially these massive plots of land, acres of land that are being redeveloped, where you're going to have at the end of the day, thousands of units, and retail. And you see it today. I'm sure many people see. You have these condo buildings. They put a grocery store on the bottom of them, right? Pure convenience. There's a grocery store. There's a gym,
bank,
all of life, banking. All of life's conveniences are built into one building. Imagine putting multiple buildings in one location. Right. The sheer benefit of that, because density brings more value. Right. So, and everyone's like, I don't want to like a condo building in my backyard, so to speak, right? But or not too close to me. But with more projects coming and more development, more retail comes. Yes. Right. Just more conveniences that we all love and enjoy come to that neighborhood. Yes. So these master plan communities were these sites where we were talking about earlier, where you have these malls and where they're building, I don't know how many thousands of units. Tons. You look at Square One out in Mississauga. Yes. Oh my gosh. They are just getting started. Yep. Right. You had a site there, M City. I think it's at least half a dozen buildings now. I think there's another 20 or 30 buildings planned for that site. And just like a master plan community will be, for example, Regent Park. Everybody knows what Regent Park was before. Look at Regent Park now, completely different. You can't even recognize how it was. Part of the city, right? It's completely different. But you have multiple projects, multiple phases. Tons of new units that came in there with, as he said, a grocery store and commercial restaurants, community centers, parks, all those things. That Regent Park would be a good Regent Park would be a good example of what we will call a master plan community, which we like because we know master plan community, especially if you get in at the beginning, they're going to continue to build. Every building's a little more expensive. They're going more and more money, right? So you start off where you pay X amount of dollars. By the end of it, that same unit would be worth on their last building tends to be a little more. Exactly. So I hope that helps. But sorry, couple more questions, and then we could just
quite a few more questions.
Do we?
All right.
Okay, let's fire away.
Rapid fire.
Where are we on this list? Sorry.
Thanks everybody for joining. By the way,
this is great.
Yeah, man,
great questions.
Awesome.
Keeps us on our toes.
Yes, it does keep me on my toes. I'm here trying to figure it out. Yeah. Sure.
Is it possible to buy new construction and assign it to someone else before closing? And are there any penalties?
Yeah. So that's one of the things that we were discussing in terms of incentives. I mentioned right to lease during occupancy. We talked about cap levies, and the last one that we were talking about was assignment
That
free
is the
assignment.
right to sell. That
The
is
right
the
to
right
sell.
to sell it prior to completion.
Right,
Is
exactly. So that's
we
so,
use these terms thinking everybody knows what.
not exactly right. So the right to sell is an assignment. So assigning your unit, which is the paperwork before you actually close on the
That's right.
property.
Selling the contract.
And some people, exactly. So some people, that's actually a strategy that people use as a real estate strategy. They would literally
they
just
flip in and
flip
out, right?
paperwork. It's a lot more risky because anything can happen. And
The
you
market can
always,
adjust, yeah.
market can adjust, things can change. I always recommend that even if that's your plan, and I talk to clients all the time, be prepared to close. If you're going to be signing on the
Great
dotted
advice.
line, and you're going to be putting money up, be prepared to close on that unit, even if you plan on assigning. Be in a position where if for whatever reason you can't assign it for whatever reason, you're able to close on a property and you're not going to lose your money. Because just to let you know, if you don't close on a property, you do lose your deposit. So the builder can take your money and keep the money, and that's that. You have to go about your business pretty much, right? So that you go about your business, right?
Yeah.
So you always want to be in a position where you can close if that's your strategy to assign.
In most cases, they were saying in terms of said it is complementary.
Yes.
That you can, sell your contract. The odd time you'll see in the fine print that the developer will charge or pass on their legal fees because there are some legal documentation on the developer side. Obviously, to change names, it's fairly simple. It's not expensive. It'd be a few $100s.
Sure.
To transfer names. So that's the only thing, the odd time the seller of the contract is responsible for.
Yeah, like so obviously that's a strategy, real estate strategy, but you all like that assignment is great as an exit strategy. As we said, like if for whatever reason things change in your situation and you can't close, you have that ready to go as a backup. Go ahead, Nikki. Any others? I know we have a few, but let's try to get a couple
a little more into personal finance.
Bring it on.
But can you explain how one would go about coming up with the money needed for a pre-construction down payment? Very few have $100,000 sitting around in cold hard cash.
Yeah, no, I just have it right in my back pocket. If you guys can just
lying around.
Yeah, I mean,
Great questions. Lots of different opportunities,
Sure.
right? So, one opportunity, if you're new to real estate and you haven't bought real estate before, you are going to need to have some form of savings in order to make the purchase.
Sure.
Another opportunity, if you own real estate already and you have equity in your real estate.
We're going to be doing a webinar on this exact topic.
Perfect.
Go ahead, Jeff. That's coming very soon.
You can draw, essentially take a home equity line of credit.
Yes.
Or increase your mortgage. Right now, anyways, the payments, your interest rates are fairly low, and use those funds to make those deposits.
That's the fastest way to really build wealth. And I'm doing it right now. I'm pretty sure you guys have done it as well, where you literally pull in from, whether it's a home or another investment, and you're now taking that and using that as your down payment. Remember, that money that you pull, that's tax-free dollars that you're pulling out, right? So you're taking that money and you're going to go invest. Another way,
you're putting it to work. You're
exactly.
putting the equity in your home to work for
right?
yourself.
So the other way, RSPs. I'm going to be doing a webinar just like this. That's going to be talking about more of the financing side. So please look out for it, where we're going to be talking about exactly that, pulling money out of your home, equity out of your home in order to buy new construction or buy an investment property. But then also I'm going to have a topic where it's more for first-time buyers, where they're looking to get a down payment and use stuff like RSP and all these other ways of being able to generate your down payment. So look out for that, please.
Great question.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
We got one more. So I'm not sure what this acronym stands for. MPA, maybe mortgage pre-approval. Or
yeah, sure. Yep.
So what happens if a developer does not ask for a mortgage pre-approval?
It's great. If they don't, that's ideal, man.
So if the developer does not ask for a mortgage pre-approval, that's fine.
Sure.
But no, as you said before, it is in the fine print in the agreement that they can ask for it at any time.
Always be prepared to have the pre-approval. It's just the smartest way to go about it. Majority of them, as we just discussed, a lot of them do ask for it. You have this out of 10, as we said, if it's even one, that will not ask, just be prepared to provide.
There are a small handful of developers that, again, don't put our thumb, or I say thumb, that's the wrong way to put it, but don't put the pressure or don't ask for them. It's a very, very small group.
Right. Awesome.
Because they need those the reason why they ask for them, there's a list, call it a list, and it's a list of check boxes that the developer has to check in order to get their financing.
Correct.
They have to have a certain amount on deposit. They have to have the mortgage approvals. They have to have the contract signed, right? They need all these things, all these ducks in a row that they hand to their underwriters or the bank's underwriters who are going to help them finance the project.
Right. So exactly. Remember what we said. They're not seeing any of that money yet, right? So they're going to need their financing. They're going to need their construction loans and the whole nine. So when they're asking you for your pre-approval, it's not because they just want it and that's that. It's not usually their decision to do.
They require it to have it.
Exactly. The banks or whoever they're getting their financing from are pushing for them to have that ready to rock. So that's the reason why it's so important. I just want to talk. So I'm hoping that we answered a lot of the questions. I want to touch on any projects that we have. I know we have a nice one coming up.
Where do you want to start? It's been a bit of a fire hose of new launches this year, but there's some great ones. We had a great presentation today on a project that's coming up along Eglinton East called the Frederick, Eglinton and Laird, right on the LRT line.
Right in Leaside.
Right in Leaside.
Great area.
Again, this is one of these master plan communities. It is the third building of this initial development, but more buildings are coming. It's not the last one,
right?
By any means. Again, you touched on it earlier about being close to transit. It's right, literally, your minutes walk to the Laird and Eglinton LRT station.
Very important.
Obviously, being in Leaside, there's some great retail, restaurants, all that kind of great stuff that's already there.
Yes.
And with this kind of density, only more is going to come.
Yeah. So that's right now my favorite.
No, it's great.
That's going to be the one I'm going to be pushing.
Price everything. Well, how much, right? Pricing has not been released yet.
So we're still waiting.
February 3rd, I believe, is a tentative launch, and that's when we.
Do we have a completion date of when that's supposed to be?
4 to 5 years.
4 to 5 years.
So it could be late 2025, early 26.
Yeah. So that's what we have. So many other projects. Again, the best thing to do is to just
all across the GTA, right? So the best thing is to reach out to you.
Yeah. Let me know what you're looking for. I can definitely help you out. Would love to. We have a huge machine. It's not just me. I have a massive machine behind me that can help out. And we look through projects. We look at which ones are going to be the ones that will be a great investment. Again, I don't want to just fire away a bunch of different random projects. I like to use ones that I will feel comfortable investing in myself. So,
and look, if clients are driving by, I mean, there's a few of them out there. If they're driving by a sign or a site, they should reach out to you.
Yeah, 100%. So my contact information is in this link right below. You'll see Sold by Clunas. You can fill it out, put your name, your phone number, email, and all that kind of stuff. You can ask me questions there, and I'll get back to you. And if you're interested, of course, in any of the projects, especially that one that's coming up in Leaside, please let me know. We can get you on that list.
There's many more. I mean, that's like more of a centrally located project.
Yeah, but the others that we could kind of throw.
Oh my gosh!
I know it feels like there's so many.
I mean, it's funny. There's one in Milton. Again, it all comes down to a big thing with new construction. It all comes down really what a lot of our clients look at are price per square foot.
Yes.
What's the price per square foot? Right?
What does that mean? Just to touch that, and we can kind of wrap up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. So price per square foot really is, you say, if X number of dollars per square foot, times 500 square feet will give you the value of the unit, right? So the higher that cost per square foot, the more expensive the unit is, right? So, we're seeing, if you look at a project in downtown Toronto now, you're seeing projects sell in the neighborhood of anywhere from $1,600 to $1,800 a square foot. In some cases, in a very recent project we were a part of, 252 Church, you're seeing prices on average between $1,600 and $1,800
around 1,700 square feet. Now, I want to put things into perspective because you're hearing those prices and you're probably like, buddy, that's crazy. It's very expensive. What was it before? Let's say 5 years ago, roughly, even just a ballpark.
Ballpark, 5 years ago, you're seeing 800, maybe $800.
So if you're wondering what's happening with our city,
it's doubled in 5 years.
5 years is literally doubled from 800 to 1,600 on average. It's not necessarily, and some people
There's a
would
lot
think
of factors that go in. Like as we all know, development cost, like you mentioned, cost of lumber has gone up. All these things, all the material costs have gone up. Cost of land has gone up.
Right.
All these things get factored into the value of this.
But the demand is still there, though.
Demand
people are still buying.
Strong.
Like we're still literally getting 10 worksheets per unit.
I was saying, and on that project, they had over 2,000 applicants.
And how many units were
680.
680 units.
And they didn't release them all. They haven't released them all yet.
680 units, but they had what? You said 2,000?
Over 2,000.
Over 2,000 applicants. So even though the prices have gone up from $800 to $1,600 per square feet within 5 years, we still have a crazy amount of
demand. Insatiable.
So I'm imploring everybody, if you are thinking about investing in real estate, now is the time. Do not wait.
One thing too is you're like, gosh, it's $1,600 a square foot. I can't afford that. Right. But I think you've got to look at, there are other opportunities.
Sure,
out there,
of
right?
course,
You
100%.
you just look at
We have
other
even like
communities.
1,200 square per square
1,200,
foot.
1,100,
Yeah,
$1,000 a
they're
square
out there.
foot. And again, the further far outside of that, you know, kind of Yonge Street downtown corridor, you get, the price tends to adjust.
And you can still do well. You can still do very, very
Very
well.
well.
Like all the like Durham is doing phenomenal. Out west is doing amazing as well. So I mean, you still have, even though it's not necessarily in the core, and maybe even a lower price point when you get further out, they're still doing very, very well.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, at the
Very
end of the
secure
day,
investment.
regardless of what it is, get in now, please. I ask you, just get in. You can. Sorry, last question. Joint
Yeah.
ventures. Getting involved with real estate or getting into new construction with more than one person. If
That's
it's an
fine.
investment
If it's an opportunity for you to get in, I would definitely suggest it. Anytime you have a partner in something, right? That risk meter goes up a little bit because things change for that partner,
Sure.
and all of a sudden, geez, you know what? I need to sell. I need my cash out.
Right.
I got a different. You know, I have an emergency. I need to look after. Anything that's going to force you to sell,
Right.
that's not a positive,
Right.
Right. So you, and again, with real estate, again, it just adds that little more extra risk. But if it enables you to get in, and as long as you have to make sure that that business partner has the same aligned goals, that you are in it for, again, I suggest in it for the long term.
Yes.
Get in it for the long
And
term.
have that discussion early. Make sure
Yes.
before you even sign documents, before you sign paperwork or agreements, have that conversation with that person. I would even go as far as sign contracts with that person to ensure that you guys have some type of agreement that's in writing.
Have an exit strategy.
Yeah, because things can
If the
change.
worst thing happens, what happens?
Yeah,
Right?
no matter if it's a best friend, family members, things can change. So have it in writing. The joint venture is clear. This is what we're doing. This is the plan that we're working with. A lot of people need to do that because the down payments are obviously pretty big now, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean,
as values goes up, the deposit.
yeah, right,
amounts
exactly.
go up,
So
right?
getting together with a couple people, make sure that you guys all have the same idea in mind. Long term, again, we push long term buy and hold. That's the best way, best strategy. That's where we see the most millionaires pop up from what we've seen, right?
It
So
grows your net worth,
yeah.
100%.
So I'm hoping this answers a lot of the questions.
I'm sure there's more questions in the
Yeah, Nick, how we doing? We're okay, but you guys can reach out to me.
I was just saying, you'll review them after, right? We can always go through them. And
Yeah. I appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
This was so much fun.
I hope you guys had a great time. This will be recorded, so you know if you have any family members or whoever that couldn't watch it live, I will be able to send it out. If you sign up as well, right below, you sign up through that link. I can actually get it to you as well. Get you the recording of this webinar, and you know any other questions, you can give me a shout. Clueless. Ask Clueless. Thank you so much for coming, Jeff. Thank you so much,
pleasure.
brother.
This was great, man.
I appreciate you guys.
Amazing.
And again,
Likewise.
reach out to me if you guys have any questions. Talk to you soon.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.